me this month, when I think about the history, the impact of African Americans on the Air Force in general, the Army Air Corps especially, I always go back to the Tuskegee Airmen. And I've had the opportunity early in my career, when I was a young captain, I was able to meet and host a Tuskegee Airman that came to visit the ROTC detachment that I was in, and loved to talk to them about the challenges. And then I've also heard other folks speak whose parents were. So like Tony Dungy, who's the football coach of the Indianapolis Colts, and I'm from Indianapolis, and had the opportunity to speak with him a little bit. His father was a Tuskegee Airman. So it was neat to hear these first-person stories about their life, and they'd always fascinated me, because when I think about what they went through, and all I had to reflect on was my own experience, and when I thought about, man, pilot training in the Air Force has got such a legacy of being tough, right? Very negative reinforcement in regards to high standards. And if you didn't meet those standards, you were humiliated on the spot, right? They had morning stand-up. You had to know your notes, warnings, and cautions. You had to know the rules. And then when you flew, you made mistakes. And I think I once literally had an instructor pilot hit me with a jet, right? He had me look out the window, and he rolled the jet up and hit me in the helmet. And then guess what? I'd never missed that level off at 7,000 feet ever again. So I thought about that, and I thought, if I am so challenged by this environment, I can't imagine what African Americans went through 40 years ago in pilot training. In that same environment was even more difficult, and they had white instructors, and there was how did they do it? You know, how did they make it through such when all the odds were against them, they turned up being the strongest and the best fighter pilots we ever had. And when I had the opportunity to talk to them, a statement that was made, and I think it was Tony Dungy's father, and Mr. Dungy had made the statement that, you know, and he used some of those lessons in his careers as a leader in football. When you're frustrated and you can't get through something, and his statement that his father made to him, he said his father didn't talk about the war much. When he said, "Dad, you know, what do you do when they're not teaching you to do it," right? Because some of these instructors, they just wouldn't teach them. They were washing them out. And he looked at me and said, "Sometimes you just got to teach yourself to fly," right? Which meant he never quit. Those folks had a no-quit attitude, and to me, it just absolute, some of the truest warriors. And this nation is so grateful to have folks like that were able to get through all those challenges of their time and come out on top and become some of the greatest leaders that the Air Force has ever had. That type of adversity makes people incredibly strong, and our nation's stronger for them. Yeah, those wars 80 years ago, World War II, we were fighting nations. And you talk about discrimination, the Nazi Party were killing, obviously, Jews, and there were no other races that were part of the German war machine. Same goes for the time with the Russians. Even though they were allies in World War II, but shortly after, they were still a one demographic community over there. So while there were still racial issues in this country, there were even more back then, but we were leaders in trying to include as many people as we could, and that's what has made this country so great from day one, is that we invite folks from other countries to come in. And what I've seen in I grew up, and I'm fourth generation from being from Europe. My background is German, but the people that I meet now, some of the folks that understand our U.S. Constitution, understand our freedom, understand our laws, and actually don't take them for granted, and become very strong business people, or I've met some of the military, they're patriots, and they're first generation, right? They're from all over the world, but they're first generation, and they respect and understand our history sometimes better than we do. But we keep this, so that diversity, when I say it makes us strong, they keep coming in and they're looking at this old document that our founders put together, And they're going, hey guys, don't forget how important this is. We've got this Bill of Rights that says we've got the right to freedom of speech. I didn't have that in my country. And guess what? You don't want to lose it here. We didn't have a right to believe any religion we wanted to. We didn't have any rules against unlawful search and seizure in my country. So wake up, you guys. Don't take these things for granted. And they become arch defenders of our Constitution. And by the way, they also see opportunity on the business side. They become entrepreneurs. And those entrepreneurs create awesome businesses that contribute, right? And then they join the Guard and Reserve, right? They're not full-time members. And that's the diversity that I love about the ARC in general, the reserves and the Guard, is that we don't have a cookie cutter military personnel on the officer or the enlisted side. We do have our academies, but we also have other avenues to come in, and we allow people to have a full-time job. So there's rich maintenance of diversity, and that diversity keeps this country healthy and alive and vibrant, and we're not going to stagnate. We're not going to have this one thought. But those different ethnicities, those different mindsets that come in, again, they keep our Constitution alive, is the key. And it's a beautiful thing. So what do I tell them about diversity? It makes us healthy. We've got to have it. And it keeps reminding us of the history of all nations in this country, that our founders were oppressed here. You know, all that Bill of Rights that I discussed, that grew out of the colonists here living under a British monarch that would come and house his soldiers in your house if he wanted to. He would kick in your door at any time for any reason. They would use cruel and unusual punishment. All these things that our founders created to protect us from our own government. We sometimes don't see as clearly as the more diverse folks that come over, again, from any nation, from Asia, Africa, especially. The more diverse they are ethnically, and the better I think they recognize how valuable our system is. Yeah, so I think it's important to remember that Black History Month, Black history is American history. Going back to our Revolutionary War, we have African Americans that were here and fought for our independence, and they've continued to fight for freedom. And like I mentioned, certainly in more modern history, I guess, is World War II, and we talked about the Tuskegee Airmen. But you can go all the way back and look at folks that were working directly with with George Washington, that helped with the crossing of the Delaware, famously held a light and was praised. And for a long time, actually, immediately after the Revolutionary War, this individual was an important part of recognizing the African American contribution and to winning our independence. So, very, very deep history here. This entire nation was built by immigrants, and we're all actually immigrants here, but we've all come together. So happy Black History Month, and fight's on.